Is the spirit properly so called without a covering, or is it, as some declare, surrounded by a substance of some kind? Answer. The spirit is enveloped in a substance which would appear to you as mere vapor, but which nevertheless appears very gross to us, though it is sufficiently vaporous to allow the spirit to float in the atmosphere and to transport himself through space at pleasure. The author's words. As the germ of a fruit is surrounded by the perisperm, so the spirit, properly so called, is surrounded by an envelope which, by analogy, may be designated as the perispirit. Now, next question. Whence does the spirit draw its semi-material envelope? Answer. From the universal fluid of each globe. For this reason, the perispirit is not the same in all globes. In passing from one globe to another, the spirit changes its envelope as you change a garment. Next question. When spirits who inhabit worlds of a higher degree than ours come among us, are they obliged to take on a grosser order of perispirit? Answer. Yes, they are obliged to clothe themselves with your matter in order to be able to enter your world. Question. Does the semi-material envelope of the spirit assume determinate forms, and can it become perceptible for us? Answer. Yes, it can assume any form that the spirit may choose to give to it. It is thus that a spirit is able sometimes to make himself visible to you, whether in dreams or in your waking state, and can take a form that may be visible and even palpable for your senses. Different orders of spirits. Question. Are all spirits equal, or does there exist among them a hierarchy of ranks? Answer. They are of different degrees, according to the degree of purification to which they have attained. Question. Is there a fixed number of order or degrees of purification among spirits? The number of such orders is unlimited, because there is nothing like a barrier or line of demarcation between the different degrees of elevation. And therefore, as there are no fixed or arbitrary divisions among spirits, the number of orders may be increased or diminished according to the point of view from which they are considered. Nevertheless, if we consider the general characteristics of spirit, we may reduce them to three principal orders or degrees. We may place in the first or highest rank those who have reached the degree of relative perfection, which constitutes what may be called pure spirits. We may place in the second rank those who have reached the middle of the ascensional ladder, those who have achieved the degree of purification in which aspiration after perfection has become the ruling desire. We may place in the third or lowest rank all those imperfect spirits who are still on the lower rungs of the ladder. They are characterized by ignorance, the love of evil, and all the low passions that retard their progress upwards. Question. Have spirits of the second order only the aspiration after perfection? Have they also the power to achieve it? Answer. They have that power in degrees, proportionate to the degree of purification at which they have severally arrived. Some of them are distinguished by their scientific knowledge, others by their wisdom and their kindness, but all of them have still to undergo the discipline of trial through temptation and suffering. Question. Are all spirits of the of the third order essentially bad? Answer: no, some of them are inactive and neutral, not doing either good or evil. Others, on the contrary, take pleasure in evil and are delighted when they find an opportunity of doing wrong. Others, again, are frivolous, foolish, fantastic, mischievous rather than wicked, tricky rather than positively malicious, amusing themselves by mystifying the human beings on whom they are able to act, and causing them various petty annoyances for their own diversion. Spirit hierarchy. Question. Preliminary observations. The classification of spirits is based upon the degree of their advancement, upon the qualities which they have acquired. I don't know if this is the question, but anyway. Let me start over. The classification of spirits is based upon the degree of their advancement, upon the qualities which they have acquired, and upon the imperfections from which they have still to free themselves. This classification, however, is by no means absolute. It is only in its totality that the character of each category is distinctly marked, for each category merges in the one above by imperceptible gradations. The peculiarities of the successive categories shading off into one another at their extremities, as is the case of the various rains of nature, in the colors of the rainbow, in the phases of human life. Spirits may therefore be divided into a number of classes more or less considerable, according to the point of view from which we consider the subject. It is in this matter as in all other systems of scientific classification. The systems adopted may be more or less complete, more or less rational, more or less convenient for the understanding, but whatever may be their form, they change nothing in regard to the facts of the science which employs them. That the answers of spirit, when questioned on this point, should vary as to the number of the categories into which they are divided, is therefore a matter of no practical importance. Too much weight has been attributed to this apparent contradiction by those who forget that discarnate intelligences attach no importance whatever to mere conventionalities. For them, the meaning of a statement is the only important point about it. They leave it to us the question of its form, the choice of terms and of classifications, in a word, all that belongs to the making of systems. Another thing that should never be lost sight of is the fact that there are among spirits, as well as among men, some who are very ignorant, and that we cannot be too much on our guard against a tendency to believe that all spirits know everything simply because they are spirits. The work of classification demands method, analysis, and a thorough knowledge of the subject investigated. But those who, in the spirit world, possess only a small amount of knowledge are as incomplete as are ignorant human beings to embrace the whole of any subject or to formulate a system. They have no idea, or but a very imperfect one, of any sort of classification. All spirits superior to themselves appear to them to be of the highest order, for they are as incapable of discriminating the various shades of knowledge, capacity, and morality by which they are distinguished, as one of our savages would be to discriminate the various characteristics of civilized men. And even those who are capable of this discrimination may vary in their appreciation of details according to their special point of view, especially in regard to a matter which, from its very nature, has nothing fixed or absolute about it. Linnaeus, Justine, Tournefort have each their special system of classification, but the nature of botany has not been changed by this diversity of system among botanists. The latter have not invented either plants or their characteristics. They have merely observed certain analogies according to which they have formed certain groups or classes. We have proceeded in the same way. We have not invented either spirits or their characteristics. We have seen and observed them. We have judged them by their own words and acts, and we have classed them by order of similitude, basing our classification on the data furnished by themselves. The higher spirits generally admit the existence of three principal categories, or main divisions, among the people of the other world. In the lowest of these, at the bottom of the ladder, are the imperfect spirits, who are characterized by the predominance of the instincts of materiality over the moral nature, and by the propensity to evil. Those of the second degree are characterized by the predominance of the moral nature over the material instincts, and by the desire of good. They constitute the category of good spirits. The first or highest category consists of those who have reached the state of pure spirits and have thus attained to the supreme degree of perfection imaginable by us. This division of spirits into three well-marked categories appears to us to be perfectly rational, and having arrived at this general classification, it only remained for us to bring out, through a sufficient number of subdivisions, the principal shades of the three great categories thus established. And this we have done with the aid of the spirits themselves, whose friendly instructions have never failed us in the carrying out of the work upon which we have been led to enter. With the aid of the following table, it will be easy for us to determine the rank and degree of superiority or inferiority of the spirits with whom we may enter into communication, and consequently the degree of esteem and confidence to which they are entitled. The power of determining these points may be said to constitute the key to spiritist investigation, for it alone, by enlightening us in regard to the intellectual and moral inequalities of spirits, can explain the anomalies presented by spirit communication. We have, however, to remark that spirits do not, in all cases, belong exclusively to such and such a class, their progress in knowledge and purity being only accomplished gradually, and often for a time, more in the one than in the other. They may unite the characteristics of several subdivisions, a point which is easily settled by observing their language and their acts. Third order, imperfect spirit. General characteristics: predominant influence of matter over spirit, propensity to evil, ignorance, pride, selfishness, and all the evil passions which result from these. They have the intuition of the existence of God, but they have no comprehension of Him. They are not all of them thoroughly bad. In many of them there is more of frivolity, want of reasoning power, and the love of mischief than of downright wickedness. Some of them do neither good nor evil, but the very fact that they do no good denotes their inferiority. Others, on the contrary, take pleasure in evil and are gratified when they find an opportunity of doing wrong. Among spirits in this order, a certain amount of intelligence is often allied with malice and the love of mischief. But whatever may be their intellectual development, their ideas are wanting in elevation, and their sentiments are more or less abject. Their knowledge of the things of the spirit world is narrow, and the little they know about them is confused with the ideals and prejudices of the corporeal life. They can give only false and incomplete notions of the spirit world. But the attentive observer may always find in their communications, however imperfect, the confirmation of the great truths proclaimed by spirits of the higher orders. Their character is revealed by their language. Every spirit who, in his communications, betrays an evil intention may be ranged in the third order. Consequently, every evil thought suggested to our mind comes to us from a spirit of that order. They see the happiness enjoyed by good spirits, and this sight causes them perpetual torment, for they experience all the agonies produced by envy and jealousy. They preserve the remembrance and the perception of the suffering of corporal life, and this impression is often more painful than the reality. They suffer, in fact, both from the ills they have themselves endured and from those which they have caused to be endured by others. And as these sufferings endure for a very long time, they believe themselves to be destined to suffer forever. God, for their punishment, wills that they should believe this. They may be subdivided into 5 principal classes. 10th class, impure spirits. They are inclined to evil, and make it the object of all their thoughts and activities. As spirits they give to men perfidious counsels, stir up discord and distrust, and assume every sort of mask in order the more effectually to deceive. They beset those whose character is weak enough to lead them to yield to their suggestions, and whom they thus draw aside from the path of progress, rejoicing when they are to retard their advancement by causing them to succumb under the appointed trials of the corporeal life. Spirits of this class may be recognized by their language, for the employment of coarse or trivial expressions by spirits, as by men, is always an indication of moral, if not of intellectual, inferiority. Their communications show the baseness of their inclinations, and though they may try to impose upon us by speaking with an appearance of reason and propriety, they are unable to keep up that false appearance and end by betraying their real quality. Certain nations have made of them infernal deities. Others designate them by the name of demons, evil genii, evil spirits. The human beings in whom they are incarnated are addicted to all the vices engendered by vile and degrading passions, sensuality, cruelty, roguery, hypocrisy, cupidity, avarice. They do evil for its own sake, without any definite motive, and from hatred to all that is good. They generally choose their victims from among honest and worthy people. They are the pest of humanity, to whatever rank of society they belong, and the varnish of a civilized education is ineffectual to cure or to hide their degrading effects. And the 9th class, frivolous spirits. They are ignorant, mischievous, unreasonable, and addicted to mockery. They meddle with everything and reply to every question without paying any attention to truth. They delight in causing petty annoyances, in raising false hopes of petty joys, in misleading people by mystifications and trickery. The spirit's vulgarity called vulgarly called hobgoblins, will-o'-the-wisps, gnomes, etc., belong to this class. They are under the orders of spirits of a higher category, who make use of them as we do of servants. In their communications with men, their language is often witty and facetious, but shallow. They are quick to seize the oddities and absurdities of men and things on which they comment with sarcastic sharpness. If they borrow distinguished names, as they are fond of doing, it is rather for the fun of the thing than from any intention to deceive by so doing. 8th class spirits who pretend to be more science than they possess. Their knowledge is often considerable, but they imagine themselves to know a good deal more than they know in reality. Having made a certain amount of progress from various points of view, their language has an air of gravity that may easily give a false impression as to their capacities and enlightenment, but their ideas are generally nothing more than the reflection of the prejudices and false reasoning of their terrestrial life. Their statements contain a mixture of truths and absurdities, in the midst of which traces of presumption, pride, jealousy, and obstinacy, from which they have not yet freed themselves, are abundantly perceptible. Seventh class, neutral spirits. They are not sufficiently advanced to take an active part in doing good, nor are they bad enough to be active in doing wrong. They incline sometimes to the one, sometimes to the other, and do not rise above the ordinary level of humanity, either in point of morality or of intelligence. They are strongly attached to the things of this world, whose gross satisfactions they regret. Sixth class, noisy and blusterous its spirits. Spirits of this kind do not, strictly speaking, form a distinct class in virtue of their personal qualities. They may belong to all the classes of the third order. They often manifest their presence in the production of phenomena perceptible by the senses, such as raps, the movement and normal displacement of solid bodies, the agitation of the air. They appear to be, more than any other class of spirits, attracted to matter. They seem to be the principal agents in determining the vicissitudes of the elements of the globe, and to act upon the air, water, fire, and the various bodies in the entrails of the earth. Whenever these phenomena present a character of intention and intelligence, it is impossible to attribute them to a mere fortuitous and physical cause. All spirits are able to produce physical phenomena, but spirits of elevated degree usually leave them to those of a lower order, more apt for action upon matter than for the things of intelligence, and when they judge it to be useful to produce physical manifestations, employ spirits of subaltern degree as their auxiliaries. Second order, good spirits. General characteristics. I think I'll start this in the next one. This was getting too long.